Good morning.
Good morning.
I wasn't really expecting to come up right now. Isn't life just sort of like that? Thank you, Danny. Perfect. I was remembering the other day, an experience I had years and years ago when we were putting on the season of nonviolence at our center in Santa Rosa. And the people that were organizing it we were all rushing around and getting things ready. And one of our practitioners rushed into the room and she goes, "I sure hope this does some good for the world because I'm sure not peaceful." And it really struck me at that moment. I'm thinking in my young practitioner mind, well, probably not. But don't we find ourselves getting there, going there, when we're trying to get something done? It may be for good. You know, so many people I know are doing good work in the world, and yet we're not always centered in that goodness. The topic this morning is the power to create a better world. And I can't help but remember the words of Ernest Holmes in the textbook where he said, "We create nothing." We're not really here to create the world and work on the world. Really, what we're talking about this morning is that power to come home to that is creating everything, as Danny sang so beautifully. When I come home to you, I find myself and everyone else. We're really talking about an understanding that greater truth of life that holds all of us. And really, that is the good news, because the world is too big of a mess for us to fix. Is it not? I'm thinking about all the stuff that's going on, and we can have this idea of, well, we're going to grow ourselves and we're going to grow and progress and create better things. And certainly as human beings, we've created beauty and wonder and amazing things on this planet. But when we look at fixing, really what we're fixing is also the damage we've done, are we not? The earth isn't causing a problem, we are. But spiritual practice isn't really about either one of those. Spiritual practice really is about anchoring and listening and walking in that awareness that something greater than us is being, knowing, doing it all through us. We're making ourselves available to become a greater vessel for that truth, for that power that's always expressing, living through us. In 2 weeks' time, things are going to shift in this country. From what I'm hearing, it might be a little of an upheaval no matter what happens. But I want to throw out to you, if in 2 weeks' time, the people that you have voted for and the propositions you have voted for don't pass, don't get elected, how will you be in the world? What will you be bringing into the world? Will you be running around not at peace, trying to make the world a better place? Because inadvertently, don't we go there? Don't we fight against? I was thinking about a colleague that I was working with years and years ago when I first became a practitioner. And this colleague was having a hard time with the practitioners in her center. And she said to me, well, I want my practitioners to follow what I'm here to present. And then actually said, it's either my way or the highway. And I said, We can't work like that as a community. As a teaching of oneness, that really doesn't make any sense. And this woman looks at me and she goes, well, so what do you want me to do? Change my personality? And I said, yes. If your personality is the problem, then best you change it. Now I've shifted and grown a lot since then. So certainly there are, as Suzuki Roshi said, a lot of things that we can improve about ourselves. The question in spiritual practice is who's doing the improving? Who do we think it is that's broken in the first place? Where are we standing? Are we standing in that wholeness and that oneness, trying to fix this human self, fix this world we seemingly have messed up? Or are we standing new in this moment and allowing life to create anew through us? I was listening to this scientist giving this talk, and then the other day I was listening to the spiritual teacher, and they were saying exactly the same thing. They said, if we have a choice ever, and both of them question whether we have a choice, there is a question whether humans actually are making choices. They said the only time we actually have a choice is brand new in this moment. The only way we can really make a conscious choice is by becoming conscious of where we stand, of what our judgments are, and the filter is that we're living from what we think is right and wrong, and who's good and bad. Because if we're not aware of that, we are going to be operating out of those old stories and filters. Are you with me?
Sure.
We are in a time, in a continuum on this universe that's ever evolving and ever changing. And we are part of it. We're not separate from it. It seems that we're separate from it. And from my perspective as a metaphysician, it seems to be that's really always and only what our work is. Am I allowing that greater presence to direct and unfold and evolve through me, not as a separate being, but together? I heard this great quote, read this great quote from George Bernard Shaw, who I have always admired, really respected. And he said, this is part of a great, beautiful quote: "The world is not devoted to making me powerful and happy. Our lives belong to the whole community." And up until now, this world that we've been participating and giving to, we've been doing it for our own and from our own perspective of it's about me. As a movement, we have lived and worked at this teaching for my good. Have we not? How do I become more? How do I get more? How do I become more happy? But really, there is no my in me in this teaching. And truly, there isn't any my in me in the reality of life. It's all one organic expression. And so really where we are evolving is from that perspective that our left brain will always tell us that there's separation, that there's me and there's you. And so the evolution, the spiritual practice, is to drop into that greater understanding where you and me and the other become one. In other words, to see and to know and to express beyond appearances. And so our work, if we're going to create a better world, is to stop and listen moment by moment from a bigger position of, am I getting what I want? Did the person I want to be president or to be a senator, did the proposition I want to pass because I think that's the right thing, did it pass? Am I standing in this new ground and listening from that place of wholeness and oneness? and allowing it to inform me. And it's a moment by moment practice. Our mind wants to handle it, doesn't it? It wants to have it done. Now I'm a good person. Now I'm always doing right. Now the world's just perfect for everybody. We have this great global vision about everybody getting their needs met. Well, we're far from that right now. Thank goodness that's not what we're trying to do. Certainly we can participate in that happening. We can do the work we can do. It's like I've talked about the work I've done making food for the homeless community in Santa Rosa. We can all participate where we're participating. There are things to do, but are we acting from wholeness or from separation? Are we fixing from brokenness, whether it's ourselves or the world? We're called to do something and see something and express something bigger than that. Not expecting and awaiting results, but opening and staying awake to what truly is. It's big work. Spiritual practice is a big calling, but look at our world right now. It's calling us in a big way. And evolution is messy, isn't it? It's kind of chaotic from our perspective. And it's a little slow. The same way the physical evolves slowly, consciousness seems to evolve slowly. That shift from the reactive mind to the mind that understands and sees and experiences wholeness. Because we've known about it for a long time, have we not? The great teachers and mystics have been talking about oneness for a long time. The scientists are talking about oneness now. But that's not necessarily where we are in our activity. We are a center for spiritual living because we are here practicing together and supporting each other in living a principle that is vast and beyond our human experience. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, calls us to be for something and against nothing. Now, you may be more evolved from me, but I have to work on not being against stuff. Do you have a mind that gets very caught up in how things are, in the way you think things should be? Be for something. So just as my colleague ran into the room and said, I'm not feeling peaceful, and my mind went to, well, you should. Really, that was her call home. It's our call home when we notice ourselves rattled. It's our call to awakening when we're feeling that dissonance or that otherness. Not to fix the world, but to shift ourselves. This is from Eddie Hillesum, the Jewish author who died in Auschwitz. I really see no other solution than to turn inward and root out all the hardness there. I no longer believe we can change anything in the world until we change ourselves. That seems to be the only lesson to be learned. That really is our teaching. Ernest Holmes says the only thing we're ever working on is shifting our own consciousness. And we're not shifting it to make it better. We're shifting it to come home to that is already present. All the great religions have given us a guideline to this work. The golden rule, which is found in all the major faiths in some form or another. The Eightfold Path from Buddhism, the Serenity Prayer from the 12-step movement of finding and knowing and through our wisdom and our deep listening, what is mine to change? And what is ours to change? Ourselves. We always have to start with, how am I being? We're pointed to and reminded all the time. And what the work is. the book of the month. And I really caught my attention because the book of the month is by Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk. And it's the power, the art of power. And it struck my attention. I never heard of that. I've got a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh books, and I've read a lot of Thich Nhat Hanh, the art of power. And I thought, I have to find this book. Now, Thich Nhat Hanh was very active. He was a social activist. He marched in the midst of the Vietnam War. It's what called him into his work. But he is calling us to be in that mindfulness and that centeredness, to walk in peace. He was not marching and talking and working to overrun the communist government in northern Vietnam. He was doing his work to bring reconciliation. That's the work that's wanted on this planet, is it not? That we learn to work together because we are together. This is our world. No one is left out of this, really. No one. Nothing, no experience is left out of this one. This is the work that we have to do, to listen and come inward. What is this about for me, this feeling, this experience, and what's mine to know and do here? And first, as Eddie was saying to us, we have to root out those barriers and that hardness in us, that judgment in us, because it's just in us. It just is in there. It's not bad, it's not wrong. It's just listening to the reactive mind instead of the truth of our being. That doesn't mean that scary things aren't happening and hard things might not happen. But this is our work. This is what spiritual community is about, is to come and do this big work together, to support each other in this greater understanding. And so we listen to the great teachings and the great guidelines. I was thinking about the St. Francis prayer. Make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. That's the work of spirituality in our teaching. That's spiritual living. Is to listen anew and then bring forth that we want to see. We may not see it immediately, but we know that it has impact. Don't you know that when you're around somebody that's walking in peace, that you can feel it? What you do know is when you're with somebody that's causing disturbance, you feel that. And that's true for us. And we don't have to even speak our judgments. People know when we're judging. Do you not know when people are in judgment around you? But we're not seeking to perfect ourselves. We're seeking to just stop each moment and be anew in that moment. Because we're created as human. We've evolved to this point. And so our human stumbling and our listening and our reactive minds, it's part of the dance of human life. It just is. We're not trying to be perfectly good. We're just aligning. We're coming home to truth. That's what all spiritual practice is about, is coming home to truth. And the world is certainly letting us know that it's wanting and calling for a greater truth. If we're going to survive on this planet, we're going to have to work together like nature works together. That's how evolution has allowed all the growth on this planet, because nature works together, and we are that. We're made of that same nature. And so we pay attention. What am I listening to and from? In 2 weeks, when the election happens, before the election happens, I should say, but in 2 weeks, best be all prayed up. Best sit down if you're going to listen to the election results and use it as prayer. I sat with a practitioner the other day, And she was talking about all the stuff that's happening in her life. And I said, and you're talking about some of the political stuff. And she goes, no. And she points to her shirt and she goes, I know the blue wave's coming and it's going to be okay. And I said, you seem to be holding your breath and gritting your teeth. And she said, yeah, I'm so scared. People are scared on both sides of the aisle. It's not my job to tell you which side of the aisle you should be on. It's not mine to tell you how you should vote or what you should even be doing. It's mine to call you home and remind you of who and what we really are. That's big work. That's revolutionary work, to stand and walk in that awakened awareness that you and I are one, that we are working together in this. It's big. But that's why we're here, isn't it? Isn't that why we draw together and we come back again and again? Because it's a big practice. And so to hold yourself in that honor and come back to your center. Not light waves, not simple. I found this shows up. I love the way things show up. You can have things show up. In fact, all life seems to show up. Yeah. This quote from Hermann Hesse, and I read him. I in the early part of my life, I read Siddhartha, and I was reading all these things, and then I went back and I was reading a quote from Jack Kerouac, the Dharma Bums. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I was reading that when I was 17. Look what he's saying. He's talking about oneness. And I don't even know, I can't even imagine how it was resonating in me, but it called me. Hermann Hesse says, to hold our tongues when everyone is gossiping, to smile without hostility at people and institutions, to compensate for the shortage of love in the world with more love in small private matters, to be more faithful in our work, to show greater patience, to forego the cheap revenge attainable from mockery and criticism. All these we can do. Wow, what a great prescription for spiritual living. Really. So yes, we do big things out in the world. There are people doing social activism out in the world, involved in projects, organizations. It's good. But we do it every step in every encounter. I listened to an interview with Trevor Noah the other day, and he was so precious. And the interviewer said, what is your greatest purpose? What is your greatest desire to be in the world? And he says, I want to be fertilizer. He says, I want to go in and I want to enrich everybody and everything's life that I touch. And I thought, how beautiful is that? To be adding to what you meet with our thoughts and our word, with how we express, with a hug. That's our work right here. It's so simple and it's all the time. And it's not about not messing up. It's about just coming home, as Danny's saying. Coming home to that presence that's always here. So let's do that right now in this practice we call spiritual alignment. As we align with this oneness beyond human understanding. We recognize that is the one source of life, the very intelligence, the presence, fully present here now, not missing, not lacking in any way. In this one embrace of life, nothing and no one is ever left out. There is no distance. There is only this life being, expressing, animating every particle, every person. So I simply take this time to come home in conscious awareness to that one consciousness that indwells me, surrounds me, that is with me always. And I know it as the truth, the very life of each one here, the life of each one that hears this word, the life of each one that shares in this one creation. And I come into alignment with that is that ground of being that knows that oneness beyond human understanding, beyond all perception of this and that. It simply is life. It simply is that light of which all is made, that one substance, that stuff of life that forms all form. It is that animates and expresses in and as all. It is that one power, that one intelligence that is unfolding throughout this universe, and it is creating, recreating anew right now. Nothing we have ever done or seemingly failed to do can ever separate us from this truth and this wholeness. Nothing need to be added unto right now. We are held, unfolding, an integral part of this one. And so I simply know this as that greater surrendering, that letting go into this moment, into that one source that informs and unfolds, that guides and directs all that there is, that walks with us as our constant companion. No me and life, simply life being life. No other in this oneness. So good to come home. So good to recognize this as the truth of all of creation, the truth of this world. No condition can take away from this wholeness of being that's unfolding, evolving anew right now. And knowing that it guides and unfolds, it opens the way before all. Brand new. Knowing it is unfolding through this community, through this country, through this world. It is doing its work of evolving and changing, creating out of its wholeness always. And so I simply surrender into that one source. That knows it is and does all things. I surrender in great gratitude for this call home. I simply let this be. And so it is.
And so it is.
Amen.
Right on, baby.